talking about emotions and releasing emotions and how we can heal through releasing our emotions. Now, I'm a big believer that body, mind, and soul are all connected. Like we are definitely one when we hear them say that expression. It's so true. The shit that we can hold on to our bodies and with emotions and sadness and pain and anger, and how that can create stagnant energy in many ways. And I believe that every single disease that we have or how we get sick is often triggered by something that's buried very, very deeply in emotions that were never healed. So I'm very excited. Hey, Jason, nice to have you too. I'm almost afraid to touch my thing because my tripod is not super solid. I'm going to bring you in. So I have the expert of emotional release today. Jen G is her nickname, and like, come on, how amazing is that? So Jen, I'm gonna bring you in. Hold on. I think you actually have to press that little plus button at the bottom to request to join me. I thought I could bring you in, but it seems that hopefully she'll press that little camera button with the plus, and then I'll be able to bring you in. Okay, I think we're having technical issues. Jen, the little button with the camera right beside the comments section, it's like a little camera. There you go. She's gonna come in. There you go.
I got it.
And of course, like Jen's first live, and it's funny because my guest
on
last
Instagram,
week, his first vibe, so I'm like, I'm having all these live virgins. So
I told you I'm like an Insta live virgin, and you're breaking my cherry today, girl. What better than a love coach to do that? Woo!
We're breaking barriers.
Yeah.
So
just be gentle with me, my love. Be gentle with me.
I'm sure I don't even have to because you're a natural. I've seen you already in action. And I mean, I think when I first met you the first time, and I remember I read your name like Jenergy, which I want you to explain where you got that name because I love that. It speaks my language. I was like, she's probably the only one I know, other than a very, very few people, that has that natural laugh and joy of life that's like very contagious. And I always say that's the best compliment I can get. So
yes, thank you. I'm so like emotionally moved. Thank you for sharing that from your heart. I appreciate it. I feel it.
Of course. Good. So today I was explaining we're going to be talking about emotion. So before I dive into that, where did Jen Energy come from? How did that nickname?
So it's Jenergy Vibes.
Jenergy Vibes.
Because anybody can be Jenergy, but not everybody can be Jenergy Vibes.
Yeah.
No, it actually originated over on LinkedIn. It became it was like my set me apart is part of my name, and then I turned it into a hashtag, and then it just wildfire. People were they loved it. And so now then it became my online TV show, Jenergy Vibes, which is on pause, but I'm going to be relaunching that soon. So it's really it started out as just like a nickname and a hashtag, and now it's become like a brand and almost like a way of life, which is really like living life through the lens of seeing everything as energy, because everything is energy. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Jenergy Vibes. And when we wrap up, I want to ask you, actually, I had to put that down about your TV show. So we'll circle back to that at the end. So today, as I said, we're going to be talking about emotions and how we can use the energy to heal our emotions. And this is your specialty. So Jen is an emotional release practitioner and an energy healer. And I would love for you to describe what is that exactly for both practices, in case nobody is aware, because
Yeah.
I like to think that my public kind of knows, but at the same time, my lives that I do is always about
Yeah.
teaching all the tools and the ways, the different ways that are out there to people to heal and grow and evolve. So what is an emotional release practitioner exactly?
Beautiful. Great question. And yeah, and it's such an important piece, especially when we're talking about relationships, right? Relationship with self and how that impacts our ability to have relationships and the quality of relationships with other people. Um, so yeah, an emotional release practitioner is someone who can actually help your body and lead your body and help facilitate its ability to release these trapped energies that are actually lodged inside the body. And I do it on an energetic level. So that's where the energy healing comes into play. So what happens, Chantal, is when we have different traumas and pain points in our lives and we experience emotions, sometimes very intensely, and they don't get processed properly, they get ignored, they get stuffed, they get suppressed, they actually get lodged literally in these little energy balls inside of the body, both in the physical body and our energy body.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you out there that don't know, we are an energy body first that happens to have this physical body. And so that the aura, you know, our chakras, like that's the energy body piece. So these emotions become very stagnant and stuck, and they build up and build up and build up. And especially with what you talk to with your audience, really important to know is the body will actually, the wisdom of the body is incredible. And what the body will do is take these energy balls of emotions and use them as a building resource and start building an energetic wall around the heart. And it's called a heart wall. And that blocks us from communication. It blocks us from trust. It blocks us from receiving love fully, giving love fully, communication, intimacy, all of the things that I'm sure you're out there talking about and working with your clients on. So it's really powerful stuff. And I'm really out there talking about and trying to change the narrative around trauma, how we deal with trauma, moving away from the coping model that we're living in and shifting into a healing model. Because, and this is my lived experience and so many people I know, is, you know, in today's society, we are taught and told that trauma is woven into the fabric of who we are, and we're stuck with it. And the only model they have to offer is, here are some coping skills and tools. And it's basically telling you, you're just going to have to settle and learn how to cope with this the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that was my truth, my story, my experience. And, you know, I come from a background of childhood sexual trauma, years of addiction and self-harm, all morphed and manifested, like you talked about in the opening, into a MS, a chronic illness that left me on the couch and in bed for 7 years, 80% of the time.
Wow.
Until I woke up and took my life back and I healed. So I'm living, walking miracle proof that the work I do is for real. And everything you said in the beginning of this live is for real.
So I'm very fascinated by that, your story, because I didn't even know it. So Jen and I recently connected, and we connected through Jason from the XXO Connect platform that I've already talked about, and that I strongly still encourage you to go check out and support. Because if you're looking for not only me or a person like Jen, there's so many different specialists and experts that are right there on one platform and giving these live sessions with you with just a small membership fee per month. So I mean, I'm like so sold on this. So I would love to, side note, I would love for you to tell us about your personal story, because MS is pretty serious, and everybody that I've ever known or heard that is diagnosed with MS, it's like, there you go. It's the end of your life. Your deathbed is there, you know, good luck.
Yeah. And your living deathbed is there. It doesn't mean you necessarily die from MS, but your body, right? Like I was existing in a body that was failing. Right? Yeah. So, and I don't say I was living in a body that was failing, I was existing. And, so honestly, I mean, to sum it up, I, you know, like I mentioned, I went through, you know, from age 3 to 10, sexual abuse in my childhood. That came with suppressing the emotions around that, living with the secret. Right. And I told my mom, and she didn't protect me. So there was re-traumatization from that and the suppression of that. Right. And then all the limiting beliefs that form from that. And I'm carrying all this around till I discovered alcohol and drugs, and I found a way to numb out, and I disassociated, PTSD, the whole thing. And I lived that way until I hit bottom like 24, end of my 24th year, and I got sober. And 4 years into sobriety is when I woke up one day, seemingly random, out of nowhere, with symptoms, horrific symptoms of what ultimately they slapped me with the diagnosis, a label of MS. I have a whole different viewpoint on it now today. I didn't at the time, but now looking back, I see it very, very clearly. I see that when I woke up that day so sick, and I lived sick for those 7 years until I started to heal, my body just didn't go haywire randomly one day and get this disease, right? It's a dis-ease. It's not a disease. I don't use the word disease, dis-ease. And these trapped emotions and the emotional component is oftentimes the culprit for most dis-ease, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't random. It was because trauma gets stored in the body on a cellular memory level. Yeah. It gets stored in the body through emotional suppression, and it gets stored in the body through energetic attachments, which I don't hear too many people talking about. And that's really what I focus on as I see these balls of these emotions in the body. These are the energetic attachments keeping people tethered to those old events. And if I could take a second to elaborate on that through my own personal story, because that's what you're asking about. So I showed up for myself, Chantal, for decades doing the inner work. I was 12-step recovery, therapy, group therapy, tapping, yoga, gong baths, chanting, meditation, you freaking name it, whatever, throw it at me. I'm here, right? And so I was showing up for myself and like, let's give me some credit. Like, go south, right? But, fast forward over 25 years later, there I was at 50 years old, really questioning it all and saying, I've been showing up for myself. I've been doing a pretty damn good job. Yeah. Like, I'm really showing up for myself here. Why am I still walking around with this, I describe it like a weighted ball of sadness deep down in the core of my beingness. And I just wanted to shake it off, and I couldn't shake it off. That's the only way I can describe it. It was in there and I couldn't shake it off. And I was like this close to not that there's a finish line, but just for a visual, I was like this close to the finish line with my healing. And I just couldn't, it was just out of reach. I couldn't shake it off. And then of course, and I talk about this a lot because I hear this, it's such a default, especially for a lot of women, is what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
I really get that question.
What's wrong with me? And so even though I'm a conscious creator, I wasn't necessarily consciously talking to the universe, but I was, right? The universe always hears us. And so the answer came through, and the universe answered, and it said, kid, there's nothing wrong with you. Good job. You've done a good job. You're simply energetically attached to those events from your past. They're keeping you tethered. And then the universe put some energy workers on my path and it was during the second session with one of them that, the first session I had a soul's recognition. It was so profound. I was like, I don't know what she's doing, but this is what I'm here on this planet to do. I finally figured out, I finally grew up and found out what I meant to do at 50 years old. I've been looking for it, right? Yeah. And so that's my lived experience. And once I found the energy work and I self-taught, I self-cleared, I had over 300 trapped emotions in my body. Wow. And I self-cleared, I got free. And what happens when these releases take place, like the body is so ready to let go, right? And once the body can let go, we can let go. Yeah. The body remembers, the body keeps score. Like there's books and, titles and things like that, but it's true, right? And so if we can lead the body and facilitate the body's ability to release these emotions out of it, then we can be freer. Yeah. The lightness comes in, the weight lifts, the depression lifts, the anxieties calm down, the mind chatter, monkey chatter, noise quiets down. So many things that, the heart opening. I mean, I can go on and on about clearing the heart wall and the heart opening that happens and what people experience in within themselves and their ability within their relationships and how things change in those areas for them. It's incredible. It's incredible.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned heart wall, because I always say, 'cause this is something obviously that I touch a lot with my own clients is they want love. They think they're ready for love. They've done a lot of the work,
Yeah.
and they still have this like stone wall around, like there's this brick wall around that's just like, it's still a
Yeah.
way for you to protect yourself. So I love that you said,
Yeah.
your heart wall. That's I'm gonna sneak that one in, because it's so true, and we don't realize. And I love what you shared about your story, how you were doing the work, you were showing up for you.
Right.
And now that I hear that story, I think about everything I did through my 20 years before finally finding my magical unicorn, and
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
I know. I know.
So just
Right.
people don't get discouraged is like, one, the work continuously continues to happen. Like, it's not something that you do for years,
No.
and like everything heals. There's always something because as we store so much, so much.
Yeah.
So I always say, start working with the heart, especially if you're looking for love and self. I mean, to the self. So that's like the source of,
that's where
like,
it starts and ends with yourself.
absolutely. So how did you end up healing yourself from your MS? Was that through that practice, or was it?
No, the healing with that started with what I experienced, what I call a divine intervention, which now looking back, I see it as a spiritual and energetic activation.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up at the age of 36. My son was 2. I was struggling to take care of him. And something just literally dropped in me. I heard, I'm an intuitive, I'm an empath. I hear messages, I feel things very deeply. And I heard a voice that day, and that voice said loud and clear. What happened is I looked around and I was like, is this it? Like this? Like, is this it? I'm like, this can't be it. I'm 36. Like, I got a long ways to go if I'm going to be on this planet. Like, this ain't it. I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew that mess wasn't it for me. And so the voice said loud and clear, I'm gonna get well. I'm not living sick anymore. I'm gonna get well. Like this, I'm done with this bullshit. I'm done. This is bullshit, and it's not reality, and I'm done.
Yeah.
And so and this is, I coach on what I term the power of decision. And I have a definition of that. And this is not like deciding what to wear one day. Like, this is like life altering on a cellular, energetic, activating level, the power of decision. And that's what happened to me today. And the definition came out of that experience. That's the day that I became a powerful creator, a conscious creator of my own life. And I define it as, choosing and embodying an unshakable truth that completely changes the trajectory of your life. And so it started with a power of decision.
Choosing and embodying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, choosing and embodying an unshakable truth.
An unshakable truth.
Shakeable, unshakable.
Shakeable truth. Yep.
That completely changes the trajectory of your life. And I chose every word very, very intentionally in my definition. Completely changes the trajectory of your life. And that's what happened that day. So it always starts with the power of decision, because so much of our power lies in our decisions. Then it became about mindset and addressing my belief system.
Mm-hmm.
I had so much conditioning, and I followed the doctor and my medical team's lead. I listened to what they said. I believed everything they told me without questioning, without getting curious. So get curious, question everything, because they don't know everything. They only know what they're taught in school. Yeah. And let me tell you, doctors, I love them. God bless them. They do great work, but they're only given, I believe, one course in their however many years of training on nutrition, even to this day. And it started with the power of decision. It moved into totally overhauling my belief system, questioning it, breaking that down, and forming a new one. And then from there, it was all about what I call therapeutic nutrition. And I always say a juicer, the Jack LaLanne juicer, an infomercial saved my life. $120, Chantal, saved my ass. And I bought it. I came home and I started juicing 3 to 4 times a day using fresh greens and fruits. And my body woke up and it was like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then from there, people always ask me, well, is there anything else, like besides the mindset and drink green juice, you know, like, and there is, and that's the emotional component, the spiritual and emotional piece. We have to go to the root cause of the stress. Stress is, you know, talk about a cause of dis-ease, like the emotions. We have to address our emotional wounding.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then all the efforts we make and the healing that we do experience isn't sustainable. Because that emotional wounding will win out every time.
I agree. So I would love, because you have a pretty big story, but I find that people often, when we talk about trauma, they always associate it to being something super traumatic and big. In your case, you know, drug abuse, abuse, you like had it, the kits and caboodles, but trauma can be as simple as well for you, like as a 5-year-old being rejected by your parents. Because so what
an umbrella term.
Sorry?
It's an umbrella term.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, from the extreme, people think, you know, sexual assault, sexual abuse, domestic violence, all like the big ones, right? But, you know, it's your parents got divorced. You were in the middle of that tug of war. It could be that your boyfriend broke up with you at 15 and broke your heart and you felt rejected. I mean, it could be a whole slew of things, you know? So yeah, it's not grief and loss. Like the trauma is a very big umbrella term.
So let's pick one emotion that somebody would come to you to work on, for example, or a situation, any given situation you would like to give. So we can kind of build on how you would work through that with a client, if you don't mind.
So it's not about the person. Like if you came to me,
it's
not about saying, okay, I'm having this emotion, because this is all subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So nobody's going to come to me and say, well, I'm having, you know, rejection, I'm having abandonment, I'm having betrayal. Like, can we please get rid of these? Like, it's not like that. It's more of like, yeah, I'm cycling that trigger loop of self-sabotage, and I can't seem like it's beyond willpower. When you were talking earlier, I was thinking about that word, like, it's not about willpower, the heart opening. Like, yeah, we want to be different, but we can't will ourselves, because there's these energetic attachments that are tethering us. And so when you or somebody comes to me, it's about the results that you want to experience, right? So if you're struggling in your marriage or your relationships, if you're struggling with intimacy, if you're struggling in that trauma or that trigger loop and whatever self-sabotaging behaviors and patterns and limiting beliefs that you're having. And so I work a lot with coaches and healers and women entrepreneurs. I also work privately with women, men, and children too. So it's really about, we come together and I connect to you energetically. And the thing about energy, energy has no boundaries. So I can connect to anybody energetically all over the globe. So I work remotely from my home. I work over the phone or on Zoom, and I connect to you energetically through the power of intention. And so we locate and we move energy through the power of intention, focus and intention. No different than the law of attraction, really, right?
Yeah.
So so I'm able then to have a conversation. Once I'm connected to you, I'm able to have a conversation with your subconscious, with your body. And I do that using kinesiology, like using muscle testing, the yes and no questions.
Yes.
And I have all the charts, and I use like 4 different modalities. I've got the charts, and I'm able to ask your body questions to, one, identify what the trapped emotion is, to locate where it's lodged in the body, discern what age it became trapped, and then I'm able to release it energetically out. And the releases, and what I love most about the work that I do, is the releases are instant and they're permanent, and they're pretty much painless. Sometimes there's an emotional wave where the person will cry as it's leaving, but that doesn't last longer than a minute. And the changes are so remarkable. I actually have a current client who's actually a mental health therapist, counselor. And our first session, she said, Jen, that session was like the equivalent, the results from that were the equivalent of like 20 therapy sessions. Like, it was like the releases were like, they're instant and they're permanent and they're life changing.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of what it looks like. So I follow the body's lead. I trust the body's wisdom. So I go in open, and I allow the body to tell me what it's ready to release.
That's amazing.
If I do want to say though, if somebody has like discomfort or a pain in their body or a certain specific issue, we can address that in a session, and I can get rid of the muck and release it for them. I've had people, I had a woman recently who has lived for years, decades, with sciatica in her right hip. And I was able to locate, we uncovered an ancestral, an inherited trapped emotion that was ancestral from her mother's great grandmother, like all the way back, I think, to her great grandmother. It was inherited. And her mother had sciatica in her right hip. Her grandmother, like all of them had sciatica in the right hips. I released this, and it's been months now, and it's gone. She has no more sciatica in her right hip. Like, it's like
believable.
Something
Yeah.
as simple as that.
And
yeah,
I don't think people understand the level of what's passed on from, you know, because we say cells and energy, like our ancestors, it's passed on from like a long, long time ago. And that's when it's like, wow, I'm so fascinated by that. And I just think
it's fascinating, right?
Yeah, because
yeah.
you can,
and what's so cool about it, Chantal, the coolest part about that, and I always joke with my clients, but like, it's so cool. The furthest I've gone back with somebody was 21 generations. Now think about that. 21 generations back to the originator of who felt that emotion, and it became trapped and it got back, right? And I mean, I have felt souls gather. They're not gathering for me. I feel it because I'm connected with my client. They're gathering for the client. But the client, like, if it's like energy vibes party. But like, and it's been very emotional. There's been crying. It's overwhelming. There's been so much joy and like rejoicing that happens in these releases, because this is, you want your mind blown? This is what really blows the mind, is that not only is the client in front of me, or on the other side of the phone, but not only is it released out of my client or out of you, it's released out of every single person in the generational line, going back to the original person, whether their soul is here on this planet or they're passed on. It is released. And you know what that means? The buck stops here. Exactly. So if you came to me and we uncovered something that went back 10 generations, it would be released, all those 10 generations, out of you, any siblings, aunts, uncles, you name it, your children, grandchildren that you might have, like all of that, like everybody gets freed from it. So I always joke, that's a bonus. I throw that in for free. I don't charge extra for all the relatives.
I love it. And it's amazing, because you think about something like that, and that's why I'm like, I want to share this stuff out there, because sometimes people are skeptical, they don't believe in it, and I'm like, it's okay, it's fine, everybody has their own path at their own time and whatever, but be open. And that's why I want to do these lives, to introduce people, because sometimes the right thing comes at the right time. We're not always ready for stuff, but be open. What if everything that's going against you, and you just do a session, for example, with Jen, to like release all that, and you're like fucking healed?
I know.
It's why wouldn't you try it? It's just so like
and you nailed it. You don't have to believe in it. You just have to be open. And my son is a perfect example. You know, he's turning 19 this month, and since I've been doing this, he's just like, okay, whatever, mom. Like, like he just didn't get it. You know, he's like, no, he's Mr. Science guy. He's all scientifically driven. And I said, dude, do you know Albert Einstein? Do you know, like, all, I start rattling up these people. I'm like, look up quantum physics. Are you familiar with that term? Like, let's look it up. This is science backed and based, and science is finally catching up to ancient spirituality. Right? It's catching up. Science is playing catch up right now, and they're recording the data.
It's I'm happy that there is some stuff like that, because I'm sure you know Joe Dispenza very well. I discovered him. He's all about that, you know, the proven science behind blah blah blah.
It's incredible.
And so all the skepticals out there.
And I brought up my son, because he actually came to me finally. He said, Mom, can you do that thing that you do on me? He actually came to me, and I was like, sure. So I did. And he actually, he's a very sensitive, emotional human being like I am. So I think he has empath in him like me. And he literally felt, he was like, whoa, like he could feel the energy move and leave. And he's kind of a believer. He has to be at this point, right? So it's like, he was my biggest skeptic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had written myself some notes here that I wanted to. So you also talked about, so I want to talk, because we talked a lot about emotions, but I want you to elaborate. And I guess this kind of the same thing, but we create stories in our heads because of limiting belief systems. And I like to elaborate more on that, because I don't think that people often realize the story that you're telling yourself doesn't, you know, it's like what happened to you or what happened for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, your story doesn't determine your outcome or who you can become tomorrow.
No.
So you, as you said at the beginning, I like, that's such a powerful definition, you know, choosing and embodying an unshakable truth that completely changes the trajectory of your life. Like
Yeah.
the day that choosing and embodying an unshakable truth that completely changes the trajectory of your life, it's exactly that. We have to choose every day. We have that luxury. So I always say, are you like happy and satisfied of sitting in your shit? And like, we're all allowed to process at different, but it's like, what's your life tomorrow? Like, what do you, like, it can change. Anything can happen. Anything is possible. It's one of my mantras I've been saying for years. So talk to us about the stories and the limiting belief systems that we can, that are stored, just I guess just a little bit like our emotions, where that can keep us from swimming forward.
Yeah, and you know that's where I think you know, those are energetic as well, and that's also where you mentioned Joe Dispenza, a lot of like the rewiring of the brain, right?
Yeah.
Because we are, it's like the body is like, it's amazing, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
and the wisdom of the body, and like how the body can, like, even the brain, even with something like MS where there's like interruptions in the neural pathways because of the scar tissue, the brain will find another route. It will build a construction route and go around it. Like, it's incredible. So but as far as like limiting beliefs and stories, like, you know, the best thing I can do to kind of talk about that is use mine as an example. So like, I, at the age of 3 is when everything began for me with the abuse and telling my mom not being protected. I internalized that experience of telling my mom that I wasn't heard. I'm not heard. And what I think and feel doesn't matter. Therefore, I don't matter. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't matter has been my freaking story that
Yeah.
I've been trying to shake off for decades. And
Yeah.
and we live that out. Right. And so, and with regards to the work I do, there's something I call seeds, where when we get into the young ages, by the time we're like age 5, then they bumped it up to 7. Now they're talking age 9, like our foundation is set. Right.
Yeah.
And there's these, when we get into the young ages and start pulling these seeds, these trapped emotions from these early ages,
Mm-hmm.
those seeds, these imprints, the conditioning that get put on us in the beginning of our lives, we didn't come into this lifetime with that stuff. They were imprinted on us. And so they change our perception of who we are and how we relate, not only to ourselves, but to the world, and how we show up or don't show up for ourselves and in our relationships. And so what ends up happening is we end up in that cycle of not only self-sabotage, but seeking out ways to prove the story's true over and over and over again. And this is all done on a subconscious level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, you know, like for me, that story of I don't matter always goes back. That the source, the core is that. And it showed up in my life like ridiculous. Like my relationships were a mess. I was a mess. But I kept, my picker was broken. I kept picking the wrong people, you know, and not just boyfriends and first husband, but like, you know, friendships,
Yeah.
friends, you know, the people I surrounded myself with. A lot of dysfunction, toxicity, and, you know, and that was a dead ass result of I don't matter.
Yeah.
And so we all have that. And what I want to say about the story, and it's the story, right? The story of I don't matter. There's a story, there's an experience, and I never say it was my abuser's fault. I never say it's my mom's fault. It's how I internalized the experience.
Exactly.
So it's
Yes.
right. Like, let's pull the fingers back, stop pointing
Yeah.
externally and blaming, because that's going to keep us stuck. Let's pull our fingers back in and say, you know what? As a little girl, I internalized that experience to mean this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do about this to change it? Right?
Yeah.
Do I want to continue to live this cycle? No, because
Yeah.
it's painful. And so the thing about the story, and I did a post on this recently, like one of the scariest questions, oh my God, I'm gonna get emotional, I ever asked myself in my healing journey was this. I get emotional every time. Who am I without the story? Who am I without the story? And I heard that question at a 12-step retreat some years
Mm-hmm.
back. Somebody asked that story, and the facilitator answered her question so beautifully, and it touched me so deeply that I wrote it down, and I've just lived by it. I've been working on letting go of the story ever since that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
he said to her and to the room, he said, oh, you will be amazed. And I'm saying this to all of you right now. You will be amazed when who you really are when you let go of that story.
Yeah.
And that is magic. Like, there's magic in letting go of the story. But I was so terrified because it's all I knew.
Yeah, exactly. That is right. Most of us have been holding on to this shit for like, because we don't end up knowing about this stuff. That's why it's like my ultimate goal is to eventually teach this kind of stuff at a younger age, so you're aware. Not necessarily you'll understand or pick everything up, but you'll be aware of your, oh yeah, this is why I act this way, because everything is related to childhood. And I always say, as you just, you know, how you show up in relationships and love will also show up in relationships with friends and like in every area of your, the same pattern.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's because how we do anything is how we do everything.
Yeah.
And if we're living by that story, how we do everything is anything is how we do everything. And I also want to say about that story, it's not fucking true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lie. It's not true. I was heard. Like, when you think about what I told myself,
yeah,
I'm not heard. So I've been a right fighter, like, for most of my life, and to be heard, right? I was heard. She heard me.
yeah,
She just didn't have the ability at the time. She thought she could handle it on her own. Turns out she was a victim of abuse in her childhood too. She learned how to keep secrets, right? So you want to talk about generational pain, and like, but you know what? The buck stops with me. Like, it's done.
yeah.
It's done.
You broke the cycle, girl.
Yeah. My dad broke the abuse cycle on his side, and I broke it on my mom's side. It's done. It's over. Doesn't exist anymore. That story is dead.
Wow, who am I? It's such a simple question, and it's so powerful. It's always like, I always say, what's the why behind the want? It's like when you, it's, you know, when you start drilling it down, and why, to just get to the real bottom of the truth. Like, it's because we often want certain things, and when you take the time to really ask the why, and it's a question I ask to my clients when they're saying, I want a relationship, why? And we get down to like the dirty gritty, like, why?
Right. Right. Are you afraid to be alone? You know, like, yeah, because you're, you know, right. Exactly. Yeah. You need somebody to take care of, you know, like, yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah. And it always comes back to the not enoughness. I'm not enough. I'm not enough on my own. I'm not enough as I am. And I'm actually moving even further than asking, like, who am I? It's in energetically and spiritually, what am I? Like, this journey is about leading ourselves back home to our wholeness. Like, I don't believe any one of us is broken. I don't believe in brokenness anymore. I used to. I thought I was broken. I was never broken. I didn't need to be fixed. I needed to be reminded, and I needed to be led back home to my wholeness. And in order to do that, we have to do all that unlayering and all that shedding of all the conditioning, the imprints, and the traumas.
Yeah. What a great way to look at it. I love that. It's all about perception, right? It's the choice of, like,
absolutely.
What would you say, like, you know, you were talking about that we all struggle with I am worthy enough, am I enough? And it's funny how the more I talk, and whether it's clients or just in conversation with circles or any other people that are into this kind of conversation, we all realize that we all have it. And I'm like, where does this shit come from? How do we all grow up thinking that we weren't enough? Like, and we are whole.
It's the human experience. It's the human condition.
Crazy.
But see, that goes back to we're an energy body. We are an energy being. We are a spiritual being.
Yes.
That's not what we are, who we are. We are whole. I don't even want to say we're enough. We're whole.
Yeah.
And when there's wholeness, there's no lack.
When we're whole, there's no lack. You're like,
I'm on fire.
I know.
I got to go back and take notes. Watch this back and take notes. Yeah, but seriously, like, that's, you know, it's really, it's what am I, you know, and at the core of what and who we are, like, we are love. Yeah. Really, we're all one. We're all connected. We're love. And it's that that divinity within us, that divine power that each one of us is a slice of. But our own slice is whole, and it's part of the bigger whole, right? Yeah. You're a slice of wholeness.
Oh, I love this shit so much.
I'd like to order 2 slices of wholeness today, please. And a Diet Coke.
Of course,
Sugar free, please.
You know, before we wrap this up, there's a quote that
so fast.
I know, right? It's like, well, we usually go over an hour, but I want people to be able to not lose. Like, there's such great insight in this live, like such great nuggets. I want people to like, not.
I can come back. You know,
Sorry?
we can do part 2.
Oh, I think we're gonna
go a whole hour.
Come part 2. We just came here to experience it all with no judgment. We forgot who we really are. Yeah, exactly, Elisa.
Absolutely.
Right. It's just the case, and we get so trapped with what the should-haves, would-have, could-haves, and what we're told. You know, you even think of the power of social media, which there's such a great, like, this is amazing where people have access to so much information, but holy shit, on the other side, the darkness that it's created on, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I should be doing this. And I remember when I started my business last year, I actually suffered from this whole, because I got into the whole Clubhouse thing and, you know, having to build my Instagram following. And I really got trapped into that comparison mode where
I did that this morning.
But it got me sick to my stomach, Jen, and I went into this huge self-doubt of who I was, my talent. I wasn't, who am I? And I was like, I've never doubted myself like that. So I can't imagine somebody that's, I like to think I'm pretty comfortable in my skin, safe, but I was like, what is self-doubt coming from all of a sudden because I'm comparing myself to others? So it was like, I needed to take a step back and just like, whoa, because we're told, is the devil, as she says.
Devil, I saw that. It's funny. You know what I want to say? I want to speak to that real quick. Something I learned early on. I've been sober over 27 years, and in recovery, this is where I learned it. I give credit to the 12-step world. This is where I hear a lot of this stuff, but I heard this and it changed everything for me. And it said, identify, don't compare.
Identify, don't
because
compare.
Identification builds bridges. It builds connection, which I'm going to plug XXOconnect.com because that's what that community is all about, right? Connection to self first and then others, and finding the relationship of your dreams. XXOconnect.com. Check it out. But yeah, I mean, that was a shameless plug. Love you, Jason. Yeah. So, but see, you guys, like this is what happens. This is the magic that happens inside of XXO Connect.
Yes.
These are the conversations we're having, the shifts, the activations. Like when you come into my room, you're going to get activated energetically, spiritually. Like it's impossible not to.
I'm coming into your next.
I hope you do. I hope so. I know.
I'm there, sister. I got a little emotional.
I got to complete my still. I got to complete my Energy Vibes tour in XXO. I haven't been to everyone's room yet, but it's on my roster. I got to do my tour and get in everybody's room. And
Alisa, it's not too late to sign up. I'm going to send you a little thing. But I want you were talking about the 12 steps program and then that with AA, and I wanted you to finish your story with that. Sorry, because we got sidetracked with XXO Connect, but unless you were done.
Well, no, the identify, don't compare. Like that's where I learned that.
Yeah.
Like because you come into the rooms, you're newly sober, you think you know everything, right? But you see people and you're like, you compare yourself. I'm like, oh, I'm not as bad as that person, or you don't, but it's more about our stories are different, the details are different, our backgrounds are different, but that freaking pain, it's all the same.
It is.
We're all human beings, and we all have that pain. And we all identify with the pain, and we can identify with the pain. And so the piece about identifying versus comparing, and I did it this morning and I caught myself. I saw a woman's video, freaking magic. Like I'm not like big on the videos yet. I don't have all the tech skills. And I'm just like, and she's similar to what I do sort of, and she's amazing. And I'm like, oh, and then I immediately went to that place of like, I'm not enough, and I was like, wait a minute. Okay. She's amazeballs. Yeah, she's amazeballs. But I'm amazeballs too. I had to like reframe myself. Like, you know what I mean? But see that comparison, like it's a wall. right? We're like identifying builds a bridge for the connection. That's how we got an XXO. But identifying with another person builds that bridge. It builds that connection. It brings us closer, where comparison separates.
It does. It really, really does. It
Yeah,
disconnects, I would say.
disconnection and separation equals comparison, where, you know, connection and intimacy is identification.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Honestly, what an honor and a beautiful conversation.
I
And
know. We
uh,
rock. This was fun.
now you're no longer a live virgin, so you can like
I
go out.
know. I'm not an Insta Live virgin anymore. I've done plenty on Facebook and LinkedIn, but this is my very first. You broke me in well. You were gentle. Thank you.
So before I wrap up, and what I want you to tell us about a TV show. There's something I read on your website that actually really stuck with me and that I loved. And you said,
Right.
don't adapt to the energy in the room, influence energy in the room. And when I read that, I was like, wow. It's like, again, a super simple phrase and a super, super simple practice to do. And it's like, it just goes to show how you can change any situation that you're in to the blink of an eye. And I'm going to give a relationship example. Last night, we had just finished our 9-day cleanse, speaking of like detoxing the body and like whatever, and the body is a natural healing machine. But it was the first time we could actually have a solid meal with a protein. So I was like, okay, we'll have fish. And I asked my boyfriend to make dinner last night. It was his dinner thing. And he ends up getting to the house later because he ended up working late. And I got tripped. I was pissed. I was hangry. I get very
Yep.
and I was like, and he was stressed because he knew that I'd be pissed. So he comes in, he's tense, I'm tense. It's creating all this tension. And I actually, you know, whenever it's like, don't adapt to the energy in the room, influence the energy of the room. And I actually said, you know what, Chantal? The poor guy did what he can. Like, what are you going to get if you continue giving him?
They can't win.
And pay because you're not getting what you want, when you want it.
Right.
Step back, breath, chill out. And I did that. And I actually told him because he asked, he goes, are you being this way because? And I was like, yeah. So I said, I'm going to change that right now. I'm going to take deep breaths. Like, and he goes, I really appreciate that. And it just changed the dynamic. We ended up having it. So,
that's being a conscious creator. That's living consciously when we are able to observe ourselves in those moments and take a step back. And I always call that there's power in the pause.
Yeah.
There's so much power in the pause. And especially in our relationships, like in how we speak, what we're about to say to somebody, like there's power in the pause. Like,
absolutely.
You know.
Alisa, I want to repeat the don't adapt to the energy in the room, influence the energy in the room. Hopefully that's what you want to repeat. So, okay. So to wrap this up, anybody, I'm going to obviously write your information in the caption with our live, but tell us where people can find you. And I'd love to know about your TV show that you were talking about that was put on.
Yeah. It's simple. It's jenrussman.com, JenRussman, my name.com. That's my website.
Exactly.
You can go see a lot of testimonials, what I'm all about, and you can contact me through there. I'm on Facebook as Jen Russman. And I've green glasses on in the picture, just like I'm on Instagram. I'm not as active, but I'm gonna beef that up. But I'm more active on LinkedIn and Facebook. So you can find me. You can hashtag Jenergy Vibes. You can find me that way. Yeah.
And what about you? That's still on.
Oh, the TV show. So I had a TV show. I was partnered with a production company, and I ran that show for 6 months online. And I recently broke up with them. It wasn't an energetic alignment with me. And so there's power in the pause, and I am revamping, and it's Jenergy Vibes is coming back. I've had so many people reaching out. They missed the show. They're like, are you going to be, so I'm like, yes, I'm going to do it. So it will be coming. I'm thinking maybe with the new year. I've got a lot going on, but I would like to get it get it up and running by the new year. And so that will actually be streamed. I'm going to start it out as a live stream. So it'll be like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Yeah. And it really, the show speaks to everything that we talked about today. And it's really going to, I want to bring on, I love bringing on powerful creators, people who have overcome, beat the odds, healed the incurable, you know, overcome whatever. And, you know, to show people what's possible and to bring hope into the world, because that's really what I'm all about.
Well, you're off to a great start and you're doing a great job. My whole mood just like I just feel so free and elevated for go hit the rest of my afternoon. So
do you feel genergized?
I feel genergized. I do. And Elisa says, I love Genergy. So creative. She loves it. So
thank you. Genergy vibes. Yeah. And it's so funny. I just want to end with this. I've had a few people reach out to me privately. Like, people are so protective on my behalf. They're like, have you seen J-Lo? She's out there in her commercials using the term Genergy. You need to trademark that. And I'm like, they're looking out for me. I'm like, I love you guys. I'm like, but seriously, like, she can have Genergy all day long. You know? Like, I'm Genergy vibes.
Yeah, that's why now I understand why you want the vibes at the end.
Yeah, I need to trademark the Genergy vibes is what I need to trademark. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I talk about vibration all the time. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's God, yeah. Thank you for vibrating. Thank you for lifting today.
As you pop my cherry. Let's just go there. Yes, I just took us there.
So thank you, people. I'm going to have all of Jen's information at the bottom of the caption, as I usually do. And please, if you are dealing with any form of, you know, trauma, emotional stuckness that you just can't, like, go explore this stuff. Like, why stay in pain and suffering for nothing? Like, sometimes therapy is not enough. You know, I always say, yeah, as I've done all of that kind of work, and I still consistently do all this kind of work.
And oftentimes it can keep us stuck. It keeps us in that cycle, and it keeps us in a cycle of dependence on that person. Keep going back to see that.
That's
so
very true.
Yeah.
So thank you. It's been a slice, and
total slice. A slice of wholeness, sister.
A slice of wholeness.
We just coined a term today, slice of wholeness.
A slice of wholeness. I'm going to down.
Write it down.
When you're hosting, it's even when I'm doing a clubhouse room, taking notes, I can't do, I'm usually really good at multitasking, but not when I'm like, I'm trying to pay attention to. So slice.
You need l'assistant. Sitting next to you to write this stuff down.
Of whole.
Or to watch the video back and take notes for you.
Absolutely. And there, you know, my dear Shakti. Shakti, we need to do a live together. I'm going to reach out to you. It's about time that we do. So thank you, Jen. Oh, and when's your XXO room, please?
Oh, I'm on the XXOconnect.com platform every Monday. 6 p.m. Eastern.
Monday, 6 p.m. You're going to. Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.